John Rhys Davis here, Salah in Indiana Jones, and Gimli in Lord of the Rings. Give 'em hell, 3 guys and a flick.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
The world is changing. Who now has the strength to stand against the armies of Isengard and Mordor? To stand against the might of Sauron and Saruman, and the union of the 2 towers.
Three guys and a flick with Duncan and John. Dive into the movies well after the dawn. From the good to the bad to the wildly absurd. They give a fuck about films. Their voices are heard.
Welcome back. You are listening to 3 Guys in a Flick. This is where we review the good, the bad, and the absurd. Tonight's episode, The Lord of the Rings, The 2 Towers. Beware spoilers. Coming to you from the top of Helm's Deep, my name is Don. Hey, can somebody go tell those orcs to shut the fuck up, please?
I got it.
Thanks, buddy. And to my right, we have the comic book guy, John.
Greetings.
And to my left, we have the professor, Ken.
Hello, everybody.
How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad.
I'm great, except I'm a little tired from watching a late night 2 Towers.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are going back to Middle Earth, and we're getting into round 2.
And you guys watch the extended versions, right?
Yes.
No.
I figure from now on, we're just going to humor him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah, we totally watched the extended version.
I think I read somewhere that if you were to watch all the extended versions back to back, it's like 11 hours.
If you got 11/12 hours in a day to watch Lord of the Rings, more power to you.
Let's do it after this.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great plan. Tonight we are talking about the 2 Towers. The 2 Towers comes to us from a couple of our listeners, Ezra and Matthew O. They commissioned the trilogy, so we are getting into the second part of the trilogy. Let me ask you this real quick. Do you guys consider this a sequel?
No.
No, because I figure I almost feel like it's all one movie divided up into 3 parts, so I wouldn't call it a sequel.
That's how I feel about it, too. It feels like one big, long movie.
You both are 100% correct. I wouldn't consider this a sequel either. I consider this a continuation.
Continuation's a great word.
Dark Knight, sequel. Empire, sequel. When the story changes, but with the same characters, I would consider that a sequel. So we are continuing our journey into Middle-earth. Released on December 18th, 2002, The 2 Towers was directed by Peter Jackson. Screenplay by Fran Walsh, Philippa Boyens, and Peter Jackson. Based on the book, The 2 Towers, by J.R.R. Tolkien. Music by Howard Shore. And it stars Elijah Wood, Ian McClellan, Liv Tyler, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Astin, Cate Blanchett, John Rhys Davies, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, Orlando Bloom, Christopher Lee, Hugo Weaving, Andy Serkis, and adding Miranda Otto, Bernard Hill, David Wenham, Brad Dourif, Carl Urban, and a bunch of other goblins and orcs.
How'd this movie do, Don?
This movie was made for roughly the same as the others were made for, $94 million, and this one brought in $952 million.
So they are going up each movie.
Which is natural, right? Because once the first one hits, I mean, Lord of the Rings can print its own money at this point.
Yeah, because the first one I think did 887 million. This one did 952.
Yeah.
And when it came out, it was December, right?
Yep.
And what I found interesting is that for a December release, it was the 3rd highest grossing movie of the year.
Ooh,
It
third.
It made $262 million in the box office.
What did it beat?
Number 4 was Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and then number 5 was My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
To be the number 3 movie of the year in release less than 30 days, because it's December, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Did you guys see this in the theater?
Oh, hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Sorry. How many times did you see this in the theater? That might be a better question.
Had to be a couple at least.
Yeah.
Had to be, drag somebody in who hadn't seen it yet. Come on, let's go.
Oh yeah, sure.
Not only did I see this several times in the theater, but I was one of those people, but this is back before you could reserve your seats. So I would get the tickets and I would go sit in line for hours just to make sure that my friends and we all had good seats to see the movie.
Yeah, I remember going to the Cinerama, and my brother-in-law went early to save seats, and it was so packed and it was so busy that because the party I was with, we were late getting there.
Of course you were.
They lost the seats, I think. And
Ooh.
so we landed up sitting on the side, and I remember my brother-in-law being pissed. I think he still brings it up. So, yeah. So, hey, bud, if you're listening, this one's for you. Yeah. So here we are back into Middle Earth. I think that this is the best one out of the three.
That's where I'm at too.
That's just my opinion.
well.
I would agree because they introduced Gollum really into this. I mean, before it was just a quick little CGI. This is where we really get a taste of Gollum, and that's what really made the series for me is just the addition of Gollum. But there are certain scenes, like there's one scene specifically, and we'll get to it when we do Return of the King, that is probably one of my favorite scenes from the entire series.
Oh, yeah.
So, but of movies, I would agree with you. This is my favorite movie.
Return of the King would have been my favorite if it didn't have so many fucking endings.
Yes, the 17 endings.
Yes. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, this film and Return of the King really step it up and really bring it home. Because, I mean, this trilogy is one of the first ones, I think, to be nominated for Best Picture, all three of them. I have to fact check The Godfather 3 because I think The Godfather 3 was nominated, but The Godfather and Lord of the Rings are the only trilogy in history to be all films be nominated for Best Picture. Speaking of Oscars.
So for Oscars, the movie was nominated for Best Picture, Art Direction, Editing, Sound Editing, and Visual Effects. And it won for sound editing and visual effects. And these guys that worked with Peter Jackson on the sound editing and the visual effects, they worked with him as well for King Kong. And they are, I don't know, they seem to travel together. And several of them worked with him throughout the series as well.
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting that Peter Jackson really campaigned strong for Andy Serkis to get nominated for Best Supporting Actor. But according to the Academy rules, because he doesn't actually appear in the movie, that is a CGI character, they wouldn't allow him to be nominated.
I think that changes later in the future. But I remember that coming up because he was like, why? I mean, come on. Gollum does not come to life if it's not for Andy Serkis. But the Academy, being prudes, are like, well, he's not on screen. So,
well, I mean, it was a motion capture and his voice. He pretty much is on screen. So it's not like they drew him in. He actually did all the movements, all the characteristics, everything, even the facial movements.
Yeah, but I mean, they did have to draw a lot of him in. I mean, it's still early on, if you will, in the CGI process. And actually, Andy Serkis goes on and creates this technology. And now he is one of the leaders in CGI effects, motion capture stuff.
He did all the Planet of the Apes movies with that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's the pioneer for it.
Yeah. Also, apparently, they wanted to nominate again the score from the movie. But another Academy rule that came up at the time was if it had been previously nominated, it couldn't be nominated again. And I guess that rule changed, but it ended up not getting nominated anyway.
He did get a statue for Fellowship of the Ring and Return of the King, but he doesn't even get a nomination for Two Towers.
That seems weird.
Yeah.
Well, Return of the King, they just write all of the wrongs from the previous 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
Let's talk about some of the new cast members in this movie.
What did you think of Bernard Hill, Theoden?
I thought in many of the scenes, he stole the scenes. I mean, he stole the movie, that his acting was so great in this movie.
Oh, I'm a big fan. I thought that Theoden was a great character, and Bernard Hill, bringing him to life, I thought he did a fantastic job. I really got behind the Rohan people. So
yeah, there's a scene where he's lamenting about his son being dead and how, parents shouldn't bury their children. That was all his idea from a conversation he had with somebody in the city who had lost a child. And that, again, such a powerful scene. That one and a couple of them in the Helm's Deep, where he feels kingly in it.
Oh, very much so. That's a great way of putting it. He does feel kingly.
I thought that he had a wonderful commanding presence each time he was on screen. He was a beautifully written character that was so majestic and regal, and he was very commanding.
I agree.
What did you think of Miranda Otto?
I thought she did a really good job. She was a nice addition to it. I like her relationship with the king and her brother.
For me, you mentioned a lot, Don, in other movies, what scene kind of gave you a little bit of teary-eyed, kind of moved you. She has a scene in Helm's Deep that we'll talk about later that of the series probably is the most emotional for me.
Oh, yeah. What about you? Did you like her?
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
Very much so.
David Wenham, Faramir. What'd you think of him?
He was good. And, he works as Boromir's brother.
Very much so. I believe it.
He looks the part.
Yeah.
He's also, I didn't realize this first, but he's in 2 of my favorite movies.
300.
Flash Gordon?
3. No, he's not in Flash Gordon.
All right. 2 of his favorite movies. Well, he has so many favorite movies.
One of them we've reviewed.
300.
No.
Did we do 300?
No. We have not done 300.
Because it's not in the helmet. I'd put it in the helmet and you took it out.
Why the fuck did I watch 300 then?
Because you wanted to?
No.
Somebody had a gun to your head?
Maybe.
It's a great movie.
It's decent. What are they?
One of them is Moulin Rouge.
Okay.
The other is Dark City, which is I wish someone would put in the helmet.
Oh.
Because without Dark City, I don't think we'd have Matrix.
Brad Dourif, who plays Wormtongue, what did you guys think of him?
For me, it took me a long time before I realized. I kept thinking, God, his voice is so familiar. I know him from somewhere. It took me forever to realize he's the voice of Chucky.
Yeah. What did you think of Wormtongue?
Wonderfully slimy.
He was, wasn't he?
Yeah, he just came across as like this greasy, slimy snake in the grass, just like...
Yeah. Yeah, I thought he did a great job.
I didn't realize, too, that he was, now that I know it, I remember what role he played, but he was in One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah, absolutely he was. Someone we actually met, Carl Urban.
God, love him.
In almost anything he does, I agree. I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
I like the bit when he meets the 3 for the first time. We'll talk about it, but I think that's a great scene.
Do you have a favorite Carl Urban movie?
That's a really good question.
And you can't say Star Wars Rise of Skywalker.
I wasn't going to, because Star Wars Rise of Skywalker shouldn't be on the favorites of anything. But that being said, I like him. I like Carl Urban in this. I loved him in Dread. He played a good foil for The Rock in Doom. And I love him in The Boys. I know that's not a movie per se, but
he is really good at
I love him in The Boys. So what about you?
I totally dig him in Dread. And the other place that I love him is Ragnarok.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one I was going to say is my favorite is Ragnarok.
And then someone who was new to the cast, but not really new to the cast, Andy Serkis, Gollum. I know that he's your favorite in the entire series.
He would be he is what made this series so great for me. I thought he was amazing.
Oh, he definitely was amazing. I'll give you that. And I didn't know that the Gollum you see in Fellowship is a rough draft of what Gollum would turn out to be. And the producers were saying, you know what? We just need a voice. We don't need anything big. We'll just CGI the whole character. And then when Andy Serkis came in and started reading, Peter Jackson was like, wait, this dude is Gollum. We got to figure out how to make him Gollum, because...
Yeah, it's because of Andy Serkis that we get as much as we do, because he fucking nailed it. He earned it every step of the way.
Yeah.
Do you know what he based this character off of?
I remember hearing about it, but what was it?
A heroin addict going through withdrawals.
Oh my God, that's brilliant.
And the voice is supposed to sound like a cat coughing up a furball.
Yeah. Anyone else in the cast jump out at you?
I know that John Rhys Davies, who's one of the people who does the opening of our show, he was so nice for that. I didn't realize until just recently he does the voice of Treebeard.
Yeah, I found that out a long time ago, and now every time I watch The Two Towers and Treebeard talks, that's all I see. I see Sala. So he played double duty. Do you think he got double paid?
No.
I'd hope so. Hey, Ken, is it about that time?
I think it is about that time. I'm feeling rather trivial. All right, gentlemen. Question number 1. What is the name of Gandalf's white horse?
Oh, Shadowfax.
Question number 2. What time frame does Gandalf the White give Aragorn to look for him to arrive back, hopefully with reinforcements?
5 days.
I would say the 5th day.
First light on the 5th day at dawn, look to the east. Question number 3. Faramir, who captures Frodo, Sam, and Smeagol, is from Gondor. What is his rank or title?
Captain?
Correct. Question number 4. What are the winged creatures that the ring wraiths ride? What are they called?
Birds of prey.
I can't remember their names.
Nazgul. Question number 5. How many archers are awaiting Faramir's order to shoot Smeagol?
3?
4.
4 is the correct answer. And so this round, I believe, goes to you, Don. Well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Was that 5 questions already?
Yep.
Oh. Frodo and Sam, lost in the rocky terrain of Mule, discover that they are being followed by Gollum. After capturing him, Frodo recognizes Gollum's past as a ring bearer, takes pity, and enlists his guidance to help navigate Mordor. Sam remains distrustful, but they press forward. Meanwhile, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli track a band of Uruk-hai who have captured Merry and Pippin. The Uruk-hai are ambushed by Rohan riders, allowing the hobbits to escape into Fangorn Forest. There, they encounter Treebeard, an ancient Ent, who takes them to the Ent Council. Aragorn's group meets Arame, an exiled leader of Rohan's Rohirrim, who informs them that King Theoden has fallen under the corrupting influence of Saruman and his manipulative servant Wormtongue. The trio then encounters Gandalf, now resurrected as Gandalf the White, who leads them to Edoras to free the king. So we get the New Line logo, we get the Lord of the Rings title, and then we cut to a beautiful sweeping shot of the mountains, and in the background we can hear Gandalf's voice. And that immediately tells me, the audience member, we're going back to where Gandalf dies to start this movie. And I thought it was so brilliant to basically pick up where we left off. And I just thought it was a brilliant move on Peter Jackson's part.
I wanted to talk about that first line that we hear, because the first word we hear is Gandalf, Frodo yelling Gandalf. And then you hear the, I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flames of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udon. And I've always wondered what that phrase meant, so I just broke it down real quick. I thought I would share it. The secret fire actually represents the spark of existence. In the realm of Middle Earth, their god is named Uru Aluvatar. And his fire, his spark of creation, is what Gandalf is referring to there. Flames of Anor. Anor is the Elvish word for sun. So basically what Gandalf is saying is he's using the sun against the darkness, which is the darkness is the Balrog. Udon is another name for the fortress that Morgoth lived in. He was the first Dark Lord. So basically what he's saying in the whole thing is that Gandalf is the servant of Eru. He wields the sun against the light against the dark, and he's telling him, you will not pass, you piece of shit from Morgoth.
Okay.
Well, there you go. And so we are flying through the terrain. We see these mountains. We hear...
That is such a beautiful shot.
It's gorgeous. They reuse it in Return of the King.
Yep.
Okay, good. I'm glad you got that. But they add an eagle. And then, so we hear Gandalf doing his thing, and then the camera whips around and we go through the mountain, and now we're on the bridge. And we get, you shall not pass. What'd you guys think of the bit where he breaks the bridge, fly, you fools. And then they start falling.
I love that we get a little bit of extended now and actually get to see him fly down. Him grabbing his sword. I believe it's glamdring.
I just heard that. I heard somebody talking about the name of the sword, and I'm like, what? The fucking sword has a name too?
Come on, this is Tolkien.
That's a good point.
Every sword in the movies have a name.
So go on. Yeah.
And I just love it. And you see him stab and everything. And I kept thinking, I remember the first time I saw it, that, they fall down to this crevice and hit the water, and then immediately Frodo wakes up, and I'm thinking, no, I want more.
What'd you think of it?
It was badass. Having him falling, and then he sees his sword, and the way he leans into it, he looks like Superman flying.
He does. And then you got the Howard Shore score going. I do like the scene where as they're falling, and then the picture cuts to, and we have that wide shot.
Yes.
And we see him coming down, and we see the lake underneath or whatever. So good. It's so pretty. And then, as you were saying, John, they fall, they hit the water. And then the transition, as soon as they hit the water, we get this big, bright white light. And then Frodo wakes up. And now we are with Sam and Frodo, and we get the title card.
The two towers.
I love that bit.
Yes.
And so Sam and Frodo are waking up.
They get up and they start walking, and then they realize, Sam is like, have we seen this before? And Frodo's like, yes, we have. We're walking in circles.
We're being followed.
Right.
So Golem sneaks down. We see him in the moonlight, that shot up above, and we see him peeking over the top. He looks great the way he comes crawling down.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is our first real shot of him. This is the first time we actually get to see him.
And I love that little fight scene that he has with them, that he's basically kicking both their asses.
He's motivated.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, but at the end of the day, it's still 2 against 1. And Frodo manages to grab Sting and threatens to cut his throat if he doesn't release Sam. And then there you have it.
The next scene right after this, where they have the little tiny thin rope around his neck, which I think is supposed to be the rope that Galadriel gave to Sam in the books.
It is.
Is it the actual Elvish?
Yeah, they tell us that in the extended edition of the first one.
That's what I was wondering. I haven't watched the extended in a while. But I love how he's complaining that it burns and then it's cold. And all I kept thinking is, this is like a little kid when you try to dress him up in a suit and you have to put a tie on him for the first time.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
I agree.
And it's so hilarious because it's such a little dainty rope, and you're thinking, how in the world could this be, refraining him? But yeah, he's hilarious in this moment.
Right.
And then how easily the rope comes off afterwards. It's like, you couldn't do that yourself?
No, well, because I guess it burns and freezes him, so he didn't want to touch it.
But then he does make a promise that he will behave, and he swears on the only thing that they will believe, the precious.
And Frodo says, "You've been to Mordor?" "Yes." "You've been to the Black Gate?" "Yes." "You will lead us." And Sam's like, "Dude, what the fuck are you doing?"
I was interested in, why does Sam take such an instant hatred of Gollum, that he just treats him like shit throughout the whole movie and mistrusts him and all that. And from what I've read, Gollum is supposed to represent kind of what's happening to Frodo, that basically this is the dark side of what the ring is doing to Frodo, and Sam hates what's happening to Frodo, so he instantly hates Gollum because that's what he represents.
I would just not trust Gollum because he's Gollum.
Okay.
So that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the side of Sam.
Well, Sam is always so nice to everybody, so friendly to everybody.
So that should fucking tell you something.
But instantly hates Gollum.
Right. So what does that tell you? If Sam has great instincts, Gollum's not to be trusted.
True that.
And as the movie goes on.
But you notice as the movie goes on, Gollum starts to actually become one of the good guys. He actually wants to help. It's because of what happens later that he reverts back to his darker side.
We cut to the Uruk-hai, and they're carrying Merry and Pippin on their back.
And they smell they smell man flesh.
I smell man flesh.
And then
Pippin says, "Aragorn."
And then he takes his little neck piece off, and he throws it to the ground.
Right. And then we cut to Aragorn. He's listening to the rock, and he's listening to the ground via the rock, and he says, their pace is quickened. They've caught our scent. Move it. And so now we're reintroduced to our 3 heroes. I love how we always refer to this movie as the walking movies, but the first half of the first third of this movie,
running.
They're all running. Yeah.
And this is a beautiful camera shot with that wonderful music. You know, it shows them running across, and you get that long sweeping shot going around them. Just beautiful.
I just kept thinking, what dicks for making Gimli run like that?
They're running, and they find Mary's leaf clasp thing.
Right.
And Aragorn says, not idly do the leaves of Lorien fall. And they pick it up, and they know that they're close.
I always wondered, how did Aragorn become such a good tracker? I mean, we especially see that when he does get to the camp, but how is he good? Do you know how old Aragorn is in this movie?
Well over 200 years?
Well, he dies at over 200 years old, but how old is he at this point in the movie?
Over 100 years?
You got a guess?
I didn't know.
He is 87 years old at this point.
Oh, that's right. They actually tell us that in the extended edition when him and Arwen start talking, because it turns out he's one of the Duodyne.
Yep.
Duodyne, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we get this wonderful panning shot of the lands, and we are told that this is Rohan, home of the horse lords. And then we get Aragorn. He's like, there's something strange at work here. Some evil gives speed to these creatures. It's the hobbits. They're being taken to Isengard. And with that's where we cut to Isengard, right?
Right.
Yes.
And then we get the, what's his name? Saruman walking.
The quote that you said at the beginning.
Yeah.
If
and,
you say it.
And he, tells the audience that, Isengard and Mordor are now connected. No one has the strength to stand up against the two towers, yada, yada, yada. And then
we get to see a little more of the production of don't we get to see more of
the fire of industry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just this beautiful camera shot, as we go up the tower.
I was always curious too what the difference is between Uruk-hai and just regular orcs and all that. Do you know why the Uruk-hai are bigger, stronger, all that?
I thought it was because they were elves.
No, well, the orcs were originally elves. They were corrupted elves. The Uruk-hai are orcs now combined with men. So now they've been crossbred with men, which makes them taller, stronger, smarter, and more obedient. So that's what the Uruk-hai are.
Speaking of the Uruk-hai, we were at their camp, and they have to rest because they've been running, and they've only had maggot-eating bread.
Maggot-infested bread.
That's what it is. And they want to eat the hobbits.
They're meat.
What about their legs? They don't need them, but they are supposed to be returned to Saruman unspoiled.
In the first movie, he said, do not fucking touch them.
That's right. And so with the orc that goes to attack the hobbit gets beheaded, and I like what the main dude says. Meat's back on the menu, boys. And then they all go to town.
I love how you see the little bits and pieces of them flying
You
up.
can see his intestines.
The
this, that, and the
entrails.
other. Yeah. And so the hobbits are trying to run away, and then another orc catches them and is going to eat them. But then the Rohans show
Well, he
up.
gets
The Rohirrim show up.
Gets a spear in the back.
Yeah. And we are also introduced to the kingdom of Rohan. And we see
That the king is very unresponsive.
and Arwen, his niece, Arwen.
Eowyn.
She is, trying to keep things together, this, that, and the other. And we are introduced to her brother, Erme, played by Carl Urban. And he comes in and he says to the king, your son has been badly wounded. We were attacked by orcs who run free across this lands, unchecked, blah, blah, blah. And Wormtongue says, you're a fucking liar, dude.
Yeah, why do you bring this to the king?
And Erme figures it out. He's like, how long has it been since Saruman bought you, you fucking dick?
Well, I like when he says, what did he pay you? Or what did he say he'd pay you with? And he looks straight at his sister.
Yeah, like he gets his sister when it's all said and done.
Mhm.
And Carl Urban's not having that.
No.
Right? But, Wormtongue is technically in power because the king's all hypnotized. And so they banish him from Rohan
Mhm.
by
Him
the
and
pain
his
of
men,
death.
yeah.
So if I'm Wormtongue, I don't know why I just don't kill this fucker. Right? But
It might look weird.
I don't know. So he's banished and they're riding around. So back at the campfire with the orcs, the Rohirrim come in and save the day. And this is I noticed this the very first time I watched it. When Pippin is on the ground and the horse goes up to stomp on him, his hands are open.
Mhm.
His arms are out. But in the scene before that, they were just tied. And as we finish that flashback later on, we'll see that as soon as Pippin rolls away, his hands are tied again.
Yeah, and then he cuts it as he's crawling.
It's continuity, Peter Jackson. $94 million you spent to make this fucking movie and nobody saw that in the editing room? Really? I mean, I get you want Billy Boyd's expression because it's great, but come on. It's not that hard. And then after that bit, we cut back to the three as the sun's rising. And Keenan has actually said this, when the red sun rises, blood has been spilt this night. I remember Keenan being little and it was either sunset or sunrise and the light was like that.
I swear I've heard him say that.
And he said that and I started rolling because it was just very proper at the time. So,
and then we hear the hooves coming along, the noise of the horses.
And so the Rohirrim meet our heroes. And I like what Carl Urban says to Gimli. You know, they surround him and he says, "What business does a man, an elf, and a dwarf have in the Riddermark?" And Gimli says,
you give me your name, Ryder, I'll give you mine.
And do you notice Aragorn's expression? Like, God damn it, why did you open your fucking mouth?
I like the whole thing with Carl Urban basically says,
I would cut off your head, dwarf,
if it wasn't,
if it stood just a bit higher. And Legolas comes to his rescue without a fucking thought. You would die before your sword fell. And then
you get all of those pikes, closing in. That's a great shot.
Oh, so good.
Aragorn's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa.
He's like, slow down, everybody. Slow down. I'm Aragorn, son of Arathorn, right? And he starts telling Aramay who he is. And Aramay kind of gives Aragorn and the other two a breakdown of what's been happening. Theoden no longer recognizes friend from foe, even his own kin. And then Aragorn tells him we've been tracking a party of Uruk-hai, took a couple of our friends hostage. And then...
Yeah, have you seen them?
They'd only be children to your eyes. And Aramay was like, sorry, dude. We fucking killed everybody.
We left none alive.
Right. And so...
The other thing I thought was interesting with the scene is they go, where was the camp? Well, you see that big burning fire over there? And I'm thinking, they didn't notice the smoke earlier?
I thought that too.
There's a couple of bits in this whole movie that I'm thinking, it's right in front of them. How come they can't see it?
That's a pretty big cloud of smoke.
Yeah. But I did think it was nice that Aramay gave him a couple horses. So no more running. Gimli, I'm sure, was fucking in heaven, right?
But you catch the line where he basically, I hope these horses will fare you better than it fared their previous riders.
Yeah. So there were extra horses because the riders were dead.
So they check out the carcasses. I'm thinking that has got to be one god awful stench.
I thought the same thing.
A mass of burning bodies,
and
they're
orc bodies.
Yeah, and orc bodies at that. I mean, they probably don't smell good to begin with, but
exactly.
Dead, yeah. And then they find one of the hobbit's belts in the fire.
You got to talk about the helmet.
I was getting there because they find the belt first, and because they find the belt. Gimli's like, we fucking failed. They're dead.
And Legolas goes right into singing like a
he starts saying his elvish prayer, which I thought is very nice. And then Aragorn kicks the helmet and screams. But at the same time, when Aragorn kicks the helmet, Viggo Mortensen breaks his fucking foot.
So that scream was because
he broke his fucking foot.
Broke his foot.
But he didn't break character, and he got the scene. And it's great. It's absolutely great. And I like how Aragorn just kind of stares at the ground, and then he notices a hobbit lay here.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of touches it, and he says they start to move, and then we got the flashback.
Mm-hmm.
And so Aragorn's telling us what's happening, and Peter Jackson's telling us and showing us what's happening. And I like this whole bit.
I like this bit, but the one thing always kind of bothered me is, at least in one scene, we get to kind of see a quick little glimpse of a footprint. I would have liked to be able to see more of the ground and what he's interpreting.
Why?
Because it looks, for most of it just looks like, oh, he's looking at grass and he knows that this is where he rolled and this is where he stood and this is what he did and all. And
yeah, because he's a fucking ranger.
I was kind of hoping they'd actually show us more of how he's deducing it.
Okay.
Just a preference.
I hear you. And I really like the line where he says their hands were bound, and then we cut back, and then it shows Pippin cutting the rope, and then Aragorn picks up the rope, and he says their bonds were cut, and then there's this hope that maybe they aren't dead, and the tracks lead away from the battle and go into Fangorn Forest.
Why would they go in there?
And Gimli says, what madness drove them into there? Right. So, And this is a great transition because the screen goes left and we go into the trees.
And there's a color change.
Yep. And then now we're following Merry and Pippin running through the forest.
Are we still being followed?
Yeah. And they are. And they almost get eaten, but Treebeard saves them.
Well, first they climb up, and I love that scene where I think is it Mary that's holding the nose?
It's Pippin.
There's Pippin that's up in the tree, holding those, and those eyes just open.
Yeah. And
You're like, what the fuck?
And Pippin has to do a double take. Because Mary had told him before they left that the trees were making noise. And he says, folk around here say that the trees talk, whisper, even move.
There's something in the forest.
And Pippin's like, what the fuck? And they find Treebeard.
I love how Treebeard stomps on the orc.
They are taken to the White Wizard.
Yeah, well, first Treebeard doesn't know if they're orcs or not. And so he's arguing with them. And he's holding them pretty tight. He's like, the one person that will be able to know what exactly you are is the White Wizard. And they're like, oh, shit, Sauron.
Yep, that's what I was thinking this whole time, for sure. And then at some point, we cut back to Sam and Frodo.
Yep.
And
Gollum's leading them.
So we get down to the bog, and I thought this was interesting. All those dead bodies in the bog. Well, first of all, did you know that whole scene was filmed in a parking lot? They just flooded a parking lot.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But those bodies, when Gollum makes reference to this is a great battle that happened, a long time ago, 3,000 years before that. So those bodies had been floating there for 3,000 years.
Still preserved so nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Must be the evil in the waters. And Gollum keeps repeating, don't follow the fucking light, right? But what does Frodo do? He follows the light, and he's looking at one of the bodies. I like the musical cue, too, when the eyes open, that low bass drop you get, and then Frodo just falls into the water.
I kept thinking that was a freaky-ass scene the first time I saw it.
Yeah, well...
All those ghosts and everything. And it made me think of Indiana Jones, the ghost coming out of the ark. And
oh, sure, I can see that. And we see a hand go in to save Frodo. And I think as the audience member, you're like, oh, Sam to the rescue.
Exactly.
But
That's
it's
what I
not.
thought. No.
It's Gollum.
But was Gollum saving Frodo, or was Gollum saving the precious?
What do you think it is?
Well, at this point, he likes Master, so he's saving Master.
After they get out of the marsh, Frodo's like, I can't believe you fucking saved me. And then they hear that screeching because here come the Nazgul on those flying thingamadoodles, and they have to take refuge underneath a tree. And this is where Gollum says, you can't kill these guys, because Sam said, I thought these guys were dead. And Gollum's like, no, you can't kill them. They're tied to the ring. They're always going to be searching.
And it's curious because if they want the ring that badly, they should be hanging out because there should be some sort of a feeling that they're closer to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of this could have ended very, very quickly if someone just used common sense, both on the good side and the bad side. If I'm Gollum, I don't know why I just don't snatch the fucking ring and run. They're not going to catch me. I'm fucking Gollum. I can climb up rocks really fast, right?
I always thought Sauron should have figured out the ring is getting closer and closer to Mordor. Just wait for him to show up.
Right? Just set a trap.
Mm-hmm.
There is that too.
So then we cut to night.
Well, yeah. And so Sam is sleeping, but Frodo, he's sitting there petting the ring.
And at the same time he's petting it, we hear Gollum talking. He's doing the same things Frodo's doing, but he's verbalizing it. And this is where Frodo and Gollum have a conversation. And Frodo tells Gollum, Gandalf told me you were one of the river folk at one time.
You were
like
basically a hobbit, yeah.
And he says, your name was Smeagol. And so now we get Smeagol.
Well, I love how it goes, what did you say? My name.
Then we go back to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and they are tracking Merry and Pippin in the forest. And then Aragorn says that the White Wizard is approaching.
Well, and they hear the forest making noises. And
isn't it Legolas who first detects that the White Wizard's somewhere here?
And I like how Gimli raises his axe in a forest with trees, and Aragorn's like, Gimli, put your fucking axe down, dude.
Yeah.
And then they run up, and we get a close up of Legolas looking around, and Aragorn walks up and says, "What is it?" And he says, and Legolas says, "The White Wizard approaches," and everybody goes serious.
I like how Aragorn says, Don't let him speak.
He will cast a spell on us. You have to be quick. And we cut to Aragorn's hand on his sword, Gimli getting his axe ready, Legolas drawing his bow a little bit, and then they flip around, they attack.
All three get their asses kicked.
Well, they get disarmed really quickly. But this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie because
The reveal.
the reveal is so good.
Did you like how they combined the two voices?
Because it sounds very much like Christopher Lee as soon as he starts talking.
Mhm.
And they did that by design. It was on purpose. They even there's even a frame of Christopher Lee's face in there if you can slow it down. He's surrounded in bright light, so the three can't really see who he is. And he says, you were tracking the whereabouts of two hobbits. They are with someone they did not expect. Does that comfort you? And Aragorn's like, who are you? And then Gandalf comes out of the light, and the look on Aragorn's face, he just cannot believe it.
He is slack-jawed.
I like how both Legolas and Gimli immediately drop to their knee, and Aragorn's just standing there going, what the fuck?
Yeah, he still can't believe it. And he looks, he goes, it's not you because you fell. And Gandalf says, yes.
Through fire and water?
Yeah. Then we get the continuation to find out what happens. And Gandalf is battling the Balrog on the top of the mountain. He fights him until he is spent. He's laying there, and just as he's
and threw his enemy off the cliff.
Yep. And he's laying there letting his body die, but it turns out he can't go just yet. He was meant for something else, and he was meant for a bigger role to play, and so he comes back.
One interesting thought I read about Gandalf is that Gandalf actually has the same power level as Sauron. He could probably defeat Sauron on his own if he wanted to, but the job he was given was to inspire hope, not to use his power to basically win the day for mankind and for all of them, but to inspire them to win it on their own. So that's why you don't see a lot of power usage from Gandalf throughout the movies.
And so he reveals himself, and Gimli says, Gandalf. And Gandalf stops and says, Gandalf. That's what they used to call me. That was my name. I love the way he says that. It almost reminds me of Forrest Gump, the way he says it.
Mm-hmm.
That was my name. I am Gandalf the White. And I like that bit because in the extended edition, he actually says, I'm Saruman, or what Saruman was supposed to be, which I found confusing. So I like the way that Peter Jackson cut this together for us non-book folk to just tell us that now he's Gandalf the White. And I believe it, and I accept it.
Do you know, and I never really caught this in the books, but do you know what his first line was when he woke up after being resurrected? I think in the books. Gandalf.
No, because I never read the books.
His first line was, I miss my hat.
Huh. I would have never. Yeah. There you go. And so they figure out that it's Gandalf. Everyone's all happy. He tells Gimli, Aragorn, and Legolas, the hobbits are good. We have a new mission. And our new mission is we got to go to Rohan. We got to help King Theoden.
Cut to Merry and Pippin, and they're with Treebeard again, and they're talking about stuff. And we are told that Gandalf told Treebeard to keep them safe.
And safe is where he will keep them.
And he's on his way to an Entmoot.
And whose side are you on? I'm on nobody's side because nobody is on my side. Treebeard reminds me a lot of you, John. Just can't make a decision. Just won't commit. Yes or no?
Well, yes and no.
See? And then we cut back to
Frodo and Sam, and Gollum has gotten them to the Black Gate.
And I like this scene because they're getting ready to go in. They don't know how they're going to do it. But wait, the gate is opening because you have all these leagues of evil men coming in. And they're at the top of the mountain or the hill, and they can't believe what's going on. And Sam takes a look, and then he falls over. And this is another one of those parts where the two guys who go to investigate, they're looking right at where they're coming down. How do they not see them?
How can they not?
Even with the cloak, even before the cloak, right? They see
Even before the cloak.
Yeah. And so Frodo goes down, and I did like this part because
it was clever.
Very clever because we see the two guys walk up, they look, we see a couple of rocks. But before this, we saw Frodo come up to Sam, try to get him out of the hole, but he couldn't do it. So he throws his cloak over his head. It wasn't until this that I realized oh, these are the magic cloaks the elves gave him.
Elven cloaks.
Yeah. And so it made them look like rocks. And I thought it was just a great bit. But how did they not see him?
Exactly.
I kept thinking that maybe from a distance they were so small that people weren't sure if they were rocks falling or.
I tried to believe that.
But
they're the size of children, and children are not that small. They're small, but not that small.
I also thought it at the angle because when Frodo comes down, he's kind of hiding around the back of the cliff a little bit as he comes down. So maybe they're not quite seeing it.
I mean, you could justify it all you want.
No, I know it was odd,
Yeah.
but they're stupid men. So
Maybe. And so they see the gate closing, and I love the line where Frodo says, Sam, I'm not asking you to come with me, or something like that.
Mhm.
And Sam gets right next to Frodo and says, I know you're not. Because he's going to do it regardless.
Mhm.
And then they go, now. And then Gollum pulls him back. No, they catch you. And Gollum doesn't care if they get caught. He doesn't want the ring to go back to Sauron.
well, I love the fact it's like I know another way. Well, why didn't you tell us? Well, you didn't.
Well, you didn't ask us,
Master
motherfucker.
didn't ask.
Yeah. What a dick.
There's a path and some stairs and a tunnel.
And it's very foreshadowing to
Mhm.
what's coming.
Mm-hmm. And a
Later.
big fucking spider.
Well, they don't say that yet,
Yeah.
but we all know. And then we cut back to the four now, Gandalf
They are riding.
into Rohan. And as they're riding up, we cut to Wormtongue and Arwen talking, and Wormtongue's kind of professing his love or kind of telling her.
Maybe trying to put the moves on a little bit.
Maybe a little bit,
Well,
right?
I always figured the what he's basically saying is you're all fucking alone, but I'm here.
Right. And she's all, you're fucking sick, dude. And we find out that Theodred had died, the king's son. And so she runs out and she stands on the porch or whatever, and the flag rips off. I wasn't sure of the significance of this, but the flag rips off as they're walking up, and it cuts to Aragorn looking at the flag as he's riding in. Did you notice that?
Mhm.
Is it supposed to mean that the horsemen are falling?
I think it kind of represents that the whole place has fallen into disrepair
Oh, maybe.
and dread. But I thought this is interesting when Miranda was hired to play Eowyn, or Eowyn, and Peter Jackson described the role to her. He says, when you first see him, you're going to fall in love with Aragorn. She took one look at Viggo Mortensen and said, no problem.
Yeah, I take one look at Viggo Mortensen and say, no problem.
Gandalf also tells us that that the house has fallen under a spell.
Right. And they have to go free the king.
Mm-hmm. And that's how I took the horse flag falling when Aragorn is looking at it, that this house has fallen.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So they get up to the front door, and the king's guard comes out and says, I can't allow you this heavily armed in front of the king as per Grima Wormtongue. And so this reminds me of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome.
I was thinking that too,
when he has
yeah.
to take out all of his
Yep.
weapons.
Yep.
And then
So-
just keep pulling them
Yeah.
out.
And I love how the guy looks at Gandalf and says, I'm going to need your staff. And Gandalf's like, you wouldn't deprive an old man of his walking stick, would you?
I really wanted to hear Gimli say, I want this back.
As they walk in, Legolas he has Gandalf in his arm.
Yeah, holding on to him.
Yeah.
You talked about continuity issues. This is one of them that bothered me because if you watch it as they keep cutting back and forth, the position of where Gandalf has his staff changes.
It's up and it's
Every
down.
time.
It's up and it's down.
And then it's hidden under his cloak, and then it's down again. And
What I loved and that I just noticed, and I don't know if they meant to do this or not, but I'm going to say they did. Gandalf's cloak is gray. So everyone who sees him
Yep.
still thinks that he's Gandalf the Grey.
yeah.
And I love that because he walks in and he says, Yo, Theoden, your hospitality is less these days.
Did
And
you catch-
Wormtongue's telling the king what to say, right?
did you catch that they called him Gandalf Stormcrow?
That's what, what's his name calls him?
And I always
Theoden.
thought, was that his last name or anything? But no, Stormcrow is just what they use to call people who bring chaos and disorder.
Oh, sure. Well, I didn't think it was anything good because he was out of his mind. And he says, you have no business here. Why should I trust you? And Wormtongue,
question, my lord.
and he goes up and he goes, late is the hour of this conjurer. And I love how Gandalf just shuts him down. Be silent. Keep your forked tongue behind your. I haven't gone through death and fire to talk to you, fucker.
You worm.
I want to talk to this guy. And then it's at this point, Wormtongue's cronies start to attack, but Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn fend them off. And
did you like Gimli? I think he like stood on the guy's chest or head and said, "I wouldn't move."
well, as soon as they capture Wormtongue, yeah, he says, "I'd stay still if I were you." And I like how Gandalf walks up to Theoden and says, "You've been asleep a long time. I release you." And then Theoden starts laughing at him because it's not Theoden, it's Saruman. And they have that little banter. And
the voice even changes.
Yeah, he says, "You have no power here, Gandalf the Grey." And then he removes the cloak. We get the big score. We get the brightness. And we find out that he's Gandalf the White. And he withdraws Saruman from Theoden as poison is withdrawn from a wound.
I love the scene where he puts the staff on Theoden's face, and you see Saruman fly backwards. Did you see the bruise along his face?
Yeah, it's a great cut. It's a great transition because it hits him, and then Christopher Lee flies back, and that's what we see. And it's so good.
This is actually one of my favorite special effects that we get Theoden transforming back into the kingly version. I thought they did a really good job with that morph.
Oh, they did great.
It looked beautiful.
Yeah. And Arwen goes to catch him, and they're looking at each other, and Theoden looks at her and he says, "I know your face." And she's so happy that he's back. And then he realizes, wait a minute. And he looks down at Wormtongue, and we cut to Wormtongue getting thrown out of the fucking building.
And rolling down the stairs.
Yeah. Because Gandalf says, or because Theoden's looking at his hands, and Gandalf says, "Your fingers would remember your strength if they grabbed onto your old sword." And that's when you get the music and the Rohan theme. And
for Gandalf to say that, that's telling everybody in the room that Gandalf is not here to conquer or take over, that he is here to restore the rightful heir of the king.
and to help.
And you know me, I'm a big fan of swords. I love props and swords. Theoden's sword is one of my favorites, the way, because, Rohan is, of the riders, they're all about the horsemen. And I love that his sword has two horses at the pommel area.
Nah, I'd still take Aragorn's sword any day of the week.
And so Gandalf, basically, Theoden wants to kill Wormtongue, but Gandalf's like, nah, let him crawl away.
Aragorn does.
Enough blood.
Aragorn lets him crawl away.
Enough blood has already been shed.
Right. The Theoden looks up and says, "Where's Theodred? Where's my son?" And we get that bit where he's burying him, or he goes to his tomb. And it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah,
right?
Bernard Hill, he really delivers on this scene. And I got to say that when he breaks down and cry, we, the audience, do too.
Oh, every single time. Every single time. And then Gandalf notices the two kids on the horse who had fled earlier. And this is where we're told that the wild men are running through the areas, burning and all this, that, and the other. And Gandalf tells Theoden, "Ride out and meet him." Right? Ride him head on. And Theoden says, "I'm not going to risk open war." And I love how Aragorn says, "Open war is upon you, whether you risk it or not." In Edoras, Gandalf breaks Saruman's hold on Theoden. Wormtongue flees, and Theoden rallies his people, leading them to the fortress of Helm's Deep to escape Saruman's approaching Uruk-hai army. Aragorn bonds with Theoden's niece, Arwen, who develops feelings for him. Along the way, Saruman's warg-riding orcs ambush the refugees, and Aragorn is thrown from a cliff, presumed dead. He later returns on horseback, warning of the enemy's imminent attack. Elrond, fearing for Arwen's future, convinces her to leave Middle-earth, though Gladriel persuades him to send elven reinforcements to aid the humans. Meanwhile, Merry and Pippin convince Treebeard to investigate Isengard. Seeing the destruction Saruman has wrought, the Ents launch a full assault, destroying the dam and flooding Isengard, trapping Saruman in his tower. At Helm's Deep, Theoden's forces prepare for a last stand. The battle begins, and despite the arrival of elven warriors, the fortress walls are breached. As hope fades, Aragorn leads to a desperate final charge. At dawn, Gandalf and Arame arrive with reinforcements, routing the army. The surviving Uruk-hai flee into Fangorn Forest, where the vengeful Ents destroy them.
That's the extended version,
But it still works.
And so we know that the orcs are coming. We know that Gandalf is pushing Theoden to do something.
Yeah, go confront them.
Do something, right? And Theoden's like, no, we're going to go to Helm's Deep because it's protected us before.
I like how he basically says, who's the fucking king here?
Last I checked. And so, again, kind of like when Gandalf said, let the ring bearer decide. He says, all right, king, what's your fucking decision? And so they decide we're going to Helm's Deep.
And good thing that they did ultimately.
Oh, absolutely.
Because when that army shows up, man, they would have washed right over that community.
Oh, my gosh.
So we do get Gandalf. He is leaving, and this is where he tells Aragorn that he has to hold on, and he has to make it to the 5th day.
I love this scene in the barn because you're right. He's like, they need you, Aragorn. They're going to need you until the very fucking end. The defenses must hold. And Aragorn's just so cool about it. He's all, they'll hold. And because Gandalf has to go find Arame. He's going to go find the other Rohan troops.
There's like 2,000 of them.
Yeah. And he's got to go find him. And he says, but no matter what happens, dude, you got to be there for him.
We get a little bit also, which leads us to a great payoff later on in the movie where we have Eowyn and Aragorn. They're chatting, they're doing a little bit of sword play and such. And she's starting to get the vibes. It's showing that she's got the vibes for him.
Yes, she does. But I tell you what, I've been watching, I watched it again, of course, obviously. Aragorn does nothing to dissuade that.
No, he doesn't.
In fact, he even flirts with her
That's
even a
what
little bit more, that fucker.
That's what I think too.
He's totally flirting with her.
Well, he's 87-year-old. Come on.
Yeah, and he doesn't know if he'll ever see Arwen again, so... But he does stay true.
But
we'll say that.
I like how he brings up the fact of that, she reminds him of the Shield Maidens of Rohan. And if you watch that animated prequel that just came out recently, they go into more detail about who the Shield Maidens were of Rohan, and they were big time.
Now it's revealed to us that Wormtongue, he's back with Saruman, and he's explaining this is what they're going to do. They're going to go to Helm's Deep, and the trip is going to be long, and there's going to be women and children. And then you get that shot of Saruman's eyebrows going up.
Children?
Send out the Ward Riders. The next thing that's revealed to us, we cut to Frodo and Sam, and we get to see Smeagol. He's chasing that fish down the stream. And, look at him. And so...
he goes, oh, stinker, don't get too far ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And
why are you always belittling him like that?
And Sam's like, because... he's a fucking villain, Frodo. What the fuck are you thinking? And you can see that the ring's starting to take over Frodo a little bit.
Because this is the first time we see him snap at Sam.
And I like Sam's reaction to it. He just kind of looks at him like, okay, whatever. And he walks on, and then Frodo's like, I'm sorry, dude. I don't know why I did that. And Sam takes this opportunity. I do. It's because the fucking ring, man.
Yeah. And with this is where I think that the audience is starting to understand the empathy that he has for Smeagol is Frodo is scared that he's going to end up like Smeagol.
And I think that Frodo always wants to do the right thing. And the right thing to do is to give Smeagol a chance.
Well, he also says, he has to believe that Gollum can come back to Smeagol. He can come back because if he can't come back, Frodo sees that he won't be able to come back later.
Sure.
So that's why he's got to save Gollum.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I buy that.
Now it's nighttime, and Frodo and Sam are sleeping, and here comes one of the favorite moments of the movie for me.
Yeah, I think that this scene alone should have got Serkis the Academy Award.
Totally.
But it didn't.
Totally, because this is Oscar worthy.
And it's not only the performance, but it's the cutting.
The editing.
And how it's cut back and forth.
Yes, the left and right.
Because it gives us the impression that we're talking to two different people.
Yep.
When really all Smeagol is doing is just turning his head.
Yeah,
right? But it's so good. And this leads to one of my favorite lines. You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you. It's just so good.
Which you say to me so often.
I say it to a lot of people, mainly pets.
I always felt like, that last little bit where he says, go away and don't come back.
What?
Go away and don't come back.
Hmm?
And then, of course, he says again, and he's like, he's gone, precious, he's gone. I thought, now he's a good guy.
I never thought that for a second. But
I thought he really does like Frodo and he wants to help Frodo, and he's not just after the precious. He'll take the precious, but he's not willing to kill them at this point.
Maybe at that moment he's not, but
it's not until he gets betrayed that he says, "Okay, let's fucking off him."
And I like how he says, "Gone, gone, gone. Smeagol is free." And then we cut to him catching a rabbit.
Yep.
And now Sam's going to get on board, right? Because Gollum tells him, eat this. And Sam's like, dude, you're going to get him sick if you keep carrying on like that.
Well, it's when he starts ripping the guts out, eating it.
There's only one way to eat a braise of conies. And then it cuts to him cooking it. And Smeagol's all kinds of pissed off. What are you doing, you fat hobbit?
You're ruining it.
He's behaving just like he was when he had that rope around his neck.
Yes.
He's just temper tantrum.
And then we find that there's noises, and Frodo goes to take a look, and we see the army of evil men making their way toward Mordor. Because
basically
now,
mercenaries.
Yeah, because now the war cry has gone out. We're starting a war. All the evil needs to go to Mordor to congregate so we can fuck shit up.
And Smeagol, he gives a good summary here to us, the audience, as to what is happening, what's at stake, and what this represents.
Mm-hmm.
And, Frodo gets this sense like, all right, we got to go. We've lingered too long. And then Sam's all, Mr. Frodo, look. And this is our first glimpse of the Olifants.
Olifant, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then as they're getting ready to leave, they notice that the army of evil men are getting attacked and ambushed by soldiers of Gondor. And this is where we meet Faramir.
And this is where I think, from what I have seen or read, where the movie really diverges from the book version, because Faramir in the book, he gets Sam, he gets Frodo, and then he lets them go. He doesn't do the whole thing of taking them to the town and going back and forth on whether he's going to take the ring or whatever. No, he just lets them go right away.
Yeah. This was written for the movie,
mm-hmm.
and I think it was brilliant because it didn't slow us down too much. It kept us moving, and it gives Faramir something to do other than just letting him go.
Well, I also thought it's a big thing into leading into the next movie. It really bonds us with Faramir, because then there's a scene in the next movie that really tugs at you because you like Faramir.
Yeah, you're pulling for him.
Oh, yeah. They are definitely setting the difference between Faramir and Boromir, for sure.
We cut to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. They are on their little journey, and we have a lighthearted moment.
And we also get a flashback of Aragorn and Arwen, and how Elrod goes to Aragorn and say, look, Elrod goes to
Arwen. Well,
he goes to Aragorn and says, look, I know you love my daughter, and I know that she loves you, but you got to let her go to the Undying Lands. And Aragorn says, man, she stays because she has hope. And Elrod's like, no, dickhead. She's staying for you. You are the reason my daughter is going to live forever unhappy. So do me a favor, let her go and move on. And then we cut to Aragorn telling Arwen, go be with your people.
Yeah, this was a fling.
And she's really fucking kind of taken back by this. She's like, why the fuck are you saying this? That's fucked up, right? Mm-hmm. And then he tries to give her back her amulet, and she's like, no, dude, it was a gift. Keep it. Because whether you like it or not, no matter what anybody says, he loves Arwen unconditionally, and she loves him unconditionally, so much so that she wants to be mortal. She wants to choose the mortal life. Yeah. But because of the way things are going, she's decided to ride to the Undying Lands. And the reason we got that flashback is because Miranda Otto's character, Urwin, asks Aragorn, where'd you get the fucking amulet, right? And then we are told that the wargs have been spotted. And Theoden's like, all right, get everybody to Helm's Deep. We'll go check this out. And he tells Arwen, get him there. And she's like, no, I can fight. And he's like, I know you can fight, but I need you to do this for me. And she's like, fuck, okay.
What she doesn't understand is that he trusts her to lead the way.
Exactly.
She doesn't understand that.
Right. And if something were to happen to him, she would take over.
That's exactly
and she doesn't understand that, like you said.
I thought exactly this, that this is a little bit of foreshadowing in that he's trying to tell her it's more important to lead the people than it is to go off to war to die.
To prove that you can fight. Yeah. Because she can. We know that she can fight. Mm-hmm. So, which we get in the third one.
And we are introduced to the badassery of Legolas.
Here's my only thing. Okay.
How he gets up on the horse?
Yes. It would have broke his arm like in 5 different spots. But anyways,
It looks unusual.
It does. I love the scene where he's standing on the hilltop and he's firing his arrows, and we get that booming score in the back.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden the horses just go right by him, and he's all so good.
Badassery.
So
Cinematically satisfying.
Thank you, sir. That's exactly what I was trying to say. And so now we get a battle. It's the wargs versus the Rohirrim.
But I'll tell you, it's the music that really makes it. We get a whimsical moment with Gimli stuck underneath one of the carcasses.
I like that.
This cracks me up.
You saw a warg rushing Gimli. Gimli's getting all stoked to fucking kill it, and then all of a sudden you see the arrows hit it, and he looks
From
over
Legolas.
at Legolas and he says, "That one counts as mine."
Yeah. And then he gets the other, it falls on top of him. And I love how he, even though he's under the warg, he still kills more, and they still fall on top of him again.
And during the battle, Aragorn gets tangled up with a rider,
Mm-hmm.
and we think that he dies because he goes over the cliff.
We
And
know he doesn't.
yeah, well,
Well, at the time,
true.
the first time you see it, you're thinking, "Oh shit, Gandalf's gone. Now Aragorn's gone. This
Well,
sucks."
we got Gandalf back.
He
Yeah,
could come
at
back
this
as
point.
Aragorn the White.
He could have, or Aragorn the King,
Yeah.
which was always my favorite. But
But what sells it is the orc telling the story, and he's got the pendant in his hand.
yeah, and Theoden is like, "All right, get the wounded on horses, get everybody to Helm's
Leave the
Deep,"
dead.
and then that look that
For just a microsecond, he is giving Legolas solace, comfort. I understand where you are at.
after he says it though.
Yes.
Yeah, because he puts his hand on his, and it's very welcoming. Like, I know Aragorn was your leader, but you're with us now. Come on, let's go. I got that too.
Yeah.
for sure.
So when they ride back into Helm's Deep and they're coming in, and Eowyn comes out to greet them basically, and is looking around and looks at Legolas and Gimli and says, where's Aragorn?
Well, Gimli comes up.
Oh yeah.
Gimli comes up and he says, "My lady."
And she says, "Lord Aragorn, where is he?" And Gimli's like, "He fell."
That expression on her face, just to see the comprehension of what has happened, and she just gives that sad, longing face. That's the one that gets me teary-eyed. That's the one that I think that really moves me out of most of this movie. I don't know why, but that's the scene that really moves me.
Really?
Yeah, just the fact of she cared so much for him, and all of a sudden he's gone.
I love how it's conveyed to us, because that look on her face, she has these big, wide eyes, and she's unblinking. And so we, the audience, we think that we have lost Aragorn. And then to see, the approach of Gimli telling her, and then the way Gimli's voice cracks, and then that look on her face, just her eyes just stay, doe-eyed, and you can feel, the despair. And then that brief look we get from Theoden when he looks over at her, he understands what she's just been told, and he puts his head down. Soul crushing.
Yeah. We cut back to Rivendell, and Elrond sends Arwen on his way.
Well, before he sends her on the way, he starts talking to her about, this is why you have to go. She's like, "I'm staying. I'm not going." And she's like, "If you stay, this is going to be your life." And he shares a vision with her of what her life would be. It is revealed she outlives him by like hundreds of years, and she becomes this lady in black that everyone knows just lives in despair and everything. So what you're seeing, that vision, is what really does happen to her.
Elrond's kind of sitting there having his conversation with Gladriel, and she's like, "Are you going to let man stand alone? Are you not going to help in any single way? What are you going to do?" And it kind of leaves us on a cliffhanger.
So we have this moment where Wormtongue and Saruman, they're chatting with each other about how to breach Helm's Deep. And so Wormtongue, he's talking about we have this one area.
How can fire just break stone?
Did you catch
How he leans in with a candle.
that they either were inspired by or they completely stole a scene in this? When the candle is coming close to the black powder and he moves the hand away, is almost shot for shot exactly what happened in Army of Darkness.
And then we have Wormtongue saying, even if it's breached, it would take thousands.
Saruman's like, tens of thousands. Check this shit out. And they walk out, and you get that big horn, and then the score just over the top of it. Oh, so good.
Did you catch in the background Wormtongue had a tear come down his face when he saw the army?
Yeah, the actor can do that on cue.
Yeah.
And he added it. He just did it. And Peter Jackson was like, yes.
Yeah.
And it can be taken a couple of different ways. And the way that I took it is that Wormtongue finally saw the destruction of man.
So we cut to Merry and Pippin, and they see Saruman's army off in the distance. And this is where the first time we get a really good look just how big that fucking army is.
Fucking huge. Yeah.
10,000.
And they're on their way to the meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the Ents are going to decide whether they're going to get involved with this or not.
We cut to Aragorn. He's floating in the water. Oh, Aragorn. Could he be alive?
It's because he has the protection of the elves.
I kept thinking throughout this movie, he gets his ass kicked, beat up, cuts, bruises, all that, and still shows up.
Because he's fucking Aragorn.
He's a
That's
badass.
right. And
Arwen kisses him back awake.
I thought for sure as she was kissing him,
It was going to be the horse.
we were going to come back and we get the horse.
Yes,
For
that's
sure.
exactly what I was thinking.
I was kind of hoping that. Yeah. And this is where we get Brego.
And Brego is nudging him.
Uh-huh.
To wake
He
the
says,
fuck up.
Get up, fucker. And he takes Aragorn, and Aragorn rides and rides and rides. And even Aragorn sees the fucking army because he's on that hill, right? He looks down.
Back to Frodo and Faramir. They're having a little chat. He's asking about, where's your third companion?
And Frodo's like, we're not traveling with anybody.
But we're also told that he was traveling, with a fellowship, and he finds out that one of them is Boromir, and Faramir is like, he's my brother.
Yeah.
Where is he?
Would it sadden you to know he fucking died?
What do you mean he fucking died? And I like how Faramir says, well, as being one of his companions, I would hope that you tell me. And then
Faramir is informed that they found the third person in the party.
and he tells Frodo, is this thing with you? And they point down, and this is the bit where Gollum catches the fish.
I guess he improvised the song.
I love that song. Faramir goes, all right, I'm going to kill him. And he raises his hand. The archers draw back, and Frodo's like, wait, he is bound to me and I am to him. And so they capture him. And this is where Smeagol gets betrayed, or he feels like he's being betrayed.
Yes. And the betrayal is going to undo all of the goodness that Smeagol has had.
Yeah.
Because Cruel's mens hurts him, and Smeagol and Gollum are talking to each other, and he goes, I told you they would fucking betray you, and you need to take it. You need to take it for yourself. And Faramir is like, take what? And then Gollum turns around and says, my precious.
Well, one of the things that always kind of bothered me about this is that really what Frodo did was save his life. And I thought, why can't Gollum see that? Well, what we don't get to see, and I don't even think it's in the extended version, it's in the book version, that Faramir's men treat Gollum like shit. They beat the crap out of him. They talk down to him. They really kind of torture him. And so that's one of the reasons why Gollum becomes so obsessed again with killing Frodo, because he blames Frodo for the mistreatment of Faramir's men.
Also, briefly, Sam is trying to convince Frodo, use the ring just this once.
Get out of here, right? You can do it. And Frodo's like, nah, man, I can't fucking do it.
Faramir shows up, and he knows what they are doing and what Frodo has.
And he says, I'm going to take you're going to Gondor.
Yeah, the ring's going back to Gondor.
And they're like, fuck.
And right here, the colors are so muted, so flat, that it's a sense of hopelessness. And half of the time that we see Frodo, his eyes aren't really even all that blue looking. They look almost brown. It's only when Frodo is talking about trying to, protect the ring that his eyes look a little bit blue. The rest of the time, his eyes, they don't look blue anymore. And the colors, it is just such a sense of drain and hopelessness.
Right. We cut back to Helm's Deep, and Aragorn returns. And I like, as he's walking in, Gimli sees him first.
Get out of the way! I'm going to kill him!
And then Aragorn's like, dude, where's the king? And he walks in, and then he sees, but he's not looking, and Legolas is standing in front of him, and he watches, and he kind of notices him, and he gives him back his pendant.
I love the talk.
Yeah.
You look terrible.
You look terrible.
And you're late.
Yeah. Yeah. And this bit.
Eowyn?
Yeah, she's all happy but it's when Aragorn opens the doors.
The badass entrance that he makes when he cracks open those doors.
Oh, so good.
The man.
Because it opens and then it cuts to a medium of him finishing opening it, and everyone's turned and like, what the fuck? And he's in there, and he tells them
there's an army coming,
and it's bred for one purpose, to the destruction of man. And his last lines are, they will be here by nightfall. So good.
Yeah.
So we got to get ready.
And Theoden, I think he wants to drop a deuce when he hears Aragorn say 10,000.
But what's Theoden's ultimate response? Let them come.
And so Aragorn, he's telling him, send out riders, my lord. We need those horsemen back.
Who's going to come? Elves? Dwarfs? We are not so lucky in our friendships as you, good sir. Call for Gondor.
And it's like, fuck Gondor. So you can already see there's a problem between Rohan and Gondor.
Yeah, they didn't come the last time we needed them, so fuck them, right? And Theoden's kind of stubborn that way.
Oh, so briefly, we get a meeting of the Ents. Going to have a nice, long, slow, drawn-out meeting.
Yeah, anything worth doing is
worth taking time, yeah.
Taking a long time.
And ultimately, it's decided that they're not going to do anything.
Well, first they decide that they're not orcs.
Which was, like how Pippin says, oh, well, that's a good thing.
We cut back to Helm's Deep, and we are moving the people into the caves in order to protect them. And we are told through Aragorn and Legolas just how fucking perilous this situation is looking to be.
This is the first time, I think, maybe even the only time, that it seems like Legolas has lost hope.
I don't know if he's lost hope, but he's fucking definitely scared.
And we see children being armed with axes and swords, and yeah.
And the three of them are talking, and Gimli says, a lot of these people have seen too many winters.
Or too few.
And then the look of Aragorn's like, yeah, you're fucking right. And then Legolas is like, 10,000 against these people? They're all going to die. And Aragorn finally loses it and says, then I will die as one of them.
Yeah, he's great here.
Yeah. And he storms off.
And then we get that little bit with him outside where he's talking to the kid.
Probably one of my favorite scenes. The kid's, scared.
What do we get from Aragorn? There is always hope.
And I think it is such an important line because he believes it. And he's telling this kid to have hope. And then we cut to a suit-up montage, which we haven't had.
Yes.
He's putting on his chainmail. He's tying his belt. He already has the gauntlets on that he got from Boromir. And then he's looking for a sword or whatever, and then Legolas hands it to him. And he says, I'm sorry for despairing earlier.
Sorry for being a dick.
Yeah. And Aragorn's like, there's nothing to forgive. It's all good. And then we see Gimli drop the chainmail, which is too big.
If we had time to get this adjusted.
It's tight across the chest.
And then we hear a horn. And Legolas says, that's no orc horn. And he goes out, and we get this beautiful shot of all of the elves marching in, and the elf theme and all of it. And it's so good. And apparently this wasn't in the book. And it just gives us hope. That, maybe we got a shot. And I like what he says. He says, years ago, there was a bond between man and elf, and we are here to honor that allegiance. And Aragorn's beyond the moon, right? He's, oh, you are most welcome. And Theoden can't believe it. He's like, really? You guys came to help us? All right, fuck, maybe we do have a chance. And I think this gets Theoden just a little bit cocky because there's a part coming up.
Well, I like, too, that they kind of flash a little bit to showing the people of Rohan, and you can see their faces start to brighten up, too. They're starting to regain some hope.
Everybody's quiet. They're all up on the wall.
And they're watching. They see the torches and whatever of the army coming.
Step by step.
And you hear that noise.
It's it's when the rain hits the armor.
Yep.
That ding, 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 ding. That's so good.
A moment of levity. Where Gimli, he wants to see.
He's behind. They didn't put him in front of like the little cutouts in the wall. They put him just behind the wall.
Should I describe what's happening, or should I get you a box? And the laugh Gimli gives him is so good. And so they're all on the wall. They're waiting for it to go down. And Aragorn is giving instruction. Hit him below the armor or somewhere.
In the neck.
And the neck is the weak point.
Yeah, and below the arm.
Right. And do not show any mercy, because they will not show you any mercy. And there's that tense moment where the old guy, he fires the arrow by accident, but at least he gets someone.
Yep.
Right. And then the leader orc tells him to charge. And here we go.
And then we see the ladders. Here come the ladders.
I mean, this whole battle is just off the hook, right? We see Legolas do his little shield slide. We see the competition going on. We see Aragorn jumping from here to there. And as the battle progresses, obviously the Rohirrim are forced back. They're working backwards. But they do such a good job of cutting here, back to the Ents, back to Frodo, back to the battle, back to the Ents. I mean, it just keeps going and going.
Well, talking about the competition, I love in the beginning, right as they first start fighting, that Gimli is so proud. He goes, I just got my second. And here's Legolas going, I just got my 17th.
I'm on 17, 19. Theoden, he gets a little cocky.
Oh my God.
Is this it? Is this all that you can
muster?
with?
Yeah. And then I'm thinking, oh, dude, anyone who ever says that in history, in any movie or anything, always get your ass kicked next.
And there's the bomb. It's in place.
And then here comes the Olympian.
I always thought he looked like an Olympian.
Totally.
Yeah.
If Legolas is so badass, how come he can't take him down?
Didn't they take down the first runner?
There's only one runner.
Oh.
He took 2 arrows, one in each shoulder. And it's also revealed at this time while this is happening, now we have the battering ram at the gate. And so the battering ram has just shown up at the gate as well.
Whoop-de-doo. Why can't Legolas hit this fucker in the head? Anybody? Anybody?
Because it wasn't in the script.
That's
way.
probably, or in the book, probably. And so the saboteur makes it, and they blow the fucking wall. I like this. I like this effect.
It looked beautiful.
This was Wormtongue's doing because he goes into that little drainage hole, and that's where he blows up the bomb.
Yes, that's what happens. And so
the battle behind the wall now begins.
And so now they got to start to get back, right? And they're at the wall with the battering ram. And I like this part because Aragorn and Gimli come out and they're breaking through the wall, or they're breaking through the door. And he looks at Theoden and goes, how much time do you need? And Theoden says, as much as you can give me. So Gimli and Aragorn sneak out of that side room.
That little side passage, yeah.
Toss me. What? Toss me. I cannot make the jump.
I like the line that he says right after that.
Don't tell the elf. And
Not a word.
And then it's funny that Aragorn with one arm can throw Gimli farther than Gimli can jump with 2 legs. But whatever.
He's a badass.
He is a badass.
Meanwhile, back at the Ent meeting, they've decided they're not going to get involved.
And Mary's like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? And the Ents are like, no, dude.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it.
I like how Treebeard says, your part in this story is done.
Yeah, you're little. You can't really affect the outcome.
And then Pippin's like, maybe we shouldn't be part of this. Maybe we should just go home.
To the Shire. There won't be a Shire.
And that's what Mary says. You don't think this will get to the Shire?
Yeah.
Back to the battle, and now we hear that they're falling back to the keep. The front gate, it's been breached, and holy shit. You see the ocean of soldiers outside. It's just like, oh, fuck.
Did you know, I guess they recorded the sounds of the orcs and everything from a football match in Europe or something?
It was a cricket match.
It was a cricket match?
And it's the opening when they're all standing there before the battle begins and they're all chanting.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson went out in the middle of the field and said, hey, we're recording, or we're doing Lord of the Rings. Do you guys want to be in it? And who says no? Right. So ingenious of the filmmakers to do that.
Well, the other thing too, the spear stomp that they do early on, the Uruk-hai stomping the spears, that was what I guess the extras were doing while they were waiting in between filming. They were sitting there stomping their spear, and Peter Jackson loved it and said, let's throw that in the movie too.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of them were ex-soldiers. Mm-hmm. So
I'll tell you, when we get back to the battle, now we see these heavily loaded ladders. They're completely, it's not just one orc on the top. There's orcs like on every 3 or 4 rungs of the ladder. These ladders are going up full of orcs, and they got the hooks on them. And man, I'm thinking, oh, fuck.
God, there's just too many. But I mean, I like how Legolas and Aragorn and all of them, they kind of dispatch them. They send the ladders going down one way, or they'll shoot the guys as soon as they're getting off the ladders.
That was a great shot of the ladders falling back into the orcs.
Yeah, I liked it.
That.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the castle's been breached, and they have to do a full-scale retreat.
Back into the keep.
And then back to Merry and Pippin, and Treebeard's taking them back, and it's like, hey, maybe you could take us south past Isengard.
The further closer to danger, the least likely they are expected us, or that's what Pippin's thinking. And I like what Treebeard says. Well, that doesn't make any sense, but You are very small.
I also like how he says, plus, I like going south because it always feels like I'm going downhill.
Yeah, for sure. And as they're walking, they have to walk past Isengard.
Which is what they want.
Exactly.
And so now we are back with Frodo, and they reach Osgiliath, and it turns out it's under attack. And with it being under attack, Faramir still is not going to let Frodo go. Nope.
Is this where Sam confronts him and says, do you know why Boromir died?
Yeah. Because he tried to take the ring.
He tried to kill him.
Right. And as they get to the end of that speech, the Nazgul attack. And this is the scene where Frodo's standing on the bridge, and it's almost like he wants to give the ring to the Nazgul.
You almost feel like the ring has fully taken him.
Yeah,
over.
he's like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore, right? And then who comes to the rescue? Sam. Tackles him. They wrestle a little bit. And this is a heartbreaking scene for me. This, you want to talk teary-eyed when Frodo's holding the sword at him, and he says, it's your Sam. Don't you recognize your Sam? And then he drops it in slow motion. He goes, I can't do this, Sam. And we get that great speech. You know, there is still good in this world, and it's worth fighting for. And I think that holds true to today, right?
And then, meanwhile, back at Helm's Deep, we now see that Whitehand they've raised their flags, and they have taken the outside, and they're about ready to breach the hull.
Right. And Aragorn has this plan. He says, ride out.
He goes, what do we do now? He goes, well, let's ride out to meet them.
Ride out and meet them.
And Theoden says, for glory and honor. And Aragorn goes, no, for Rohan. And that stops Theoden. He makes him think, and he goes, you're right. Yes, let's fucking do it. I like how Gimli gets all excited to do it, but all he does is blow the horn.
I felt like at this point, when he says this to Theoden's already decided they're done. They're going to lose.
Yep.
That they're basically riding out to their death, but they're going to do it with honor.
Right. Yep. For Rohan.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's at this bit where
Aragorn, he looks at the light coming in, and then we hear Gandalf's voice.
And that's when he says, let's go meet him. Right. Because he's got the sneaky suspicion. So he rides out there, and they start fighting this and that. And then we see Gandalf on the ridge.
Fuck, man. I love how badass they look riding down the ramp to that ocean of orcs.
Yeah.
They so brazen.
Well, and he says, there lies Theoden standing alone. And then Aramay comes up from behind him. Not alone. Oh, it just gives me chills.
Well, I just love the fact, I never really connected when I was first watching the movie he said, look to me at the east. Well, that makes sense now because that's where the sun rises. And so he's going to have the sun at his back, blinding the orcs as he comes down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. And then he uses his spear and really brightens it up because the orcs don't like light. Mm-hmm. And that comes into play later on as well.
Such wonderful cinematography here, too.
Oh, the whole thing.
Cut back to Isengard, and we have a full-scale battle going on with the Ent and the orcs.
What'd you think of this whole bit?
It was cool.
I liked it. I like the tree that's on fire. And then after they break the dam, he has to put himself out.
He dunks himself out.
And I kept thinking, these orcs and everybody are fucked because who's going to fight the trees, right? So,
well, I kept thinking Sauron made a critical mistake because he sent all of his best Uruk-hai to go attack Helm's Deep, and all he's got is these probably the guys who were making the weapons.
Yeah, he left them unguarded.
So the Treants are just kicking their asses.
Right, and so Isengard falls. And so the day is won, and Helm's Deep is protected, and they send the rest of the Uruk-hai army running away. They're standing on the ledge, or they're standing on the ridge watching, and Gandalf's like, the battle for Helm's Deep is over. The battle for Middle-earth, that's about to begin. Frodo, Sam, and Gollum reach the Black Gate, but at Gollum's urging take a different path. They are captured by Faramir, Boromir's younger brother, who learns of the ring and intends to take it to Gondor. While traveling back through Osgiliath, Frodo nearly succumbs to the influence of the Nazgul before Sam brings him back to his senses, reminding him of their mission and the hope they fight for. Moved, Faramir releases them. Feeling betrayed by his capture, Gollum secretly vows to reclaim the ring. As they continue their journey, he leads Frodo and Sam toward Cirith Ungol, where a monstrous danger Shelob awaits in the shadows. Roll credits.
I like the whole scene because we already talked about a little bit about the Faramir going back and forth, where he basically comes to the conclusion because Galadriel had predicted that it all came down to Faramir's decision. If he had decided to take the ring, mankind was doomed. If Faramir let him go, they had a shot. And Faramir comes to that decision of, I'm gonna let them go, and his guard or whatever says, your life will be forfeit.
And then what does he say? Then my life is forfeit.
Yeah, and he says, I think we understand each other, Mr. Frodo. Go ahead. Go fucking destroy the ring. Do what's right. And Faramir makes the right choice. And so he lets him go, and as they are walking through the forest, I like this scene because it's a little bit of levity and a little bit moment for them to breathe. They're talking about stories, and Sam's wondering if
we'll be put into songs or tales.
And Frodo's like, I want to hear more about Sam.
Sam the Brave.
And it's at this time Gollum is having a crisis of faith again. And Gollum says, kill him. And Smeagol goes, no, I can't. And Gollum says, kill him. And Smeagol's like, no. And Gollum says, but she can do it. And then Smeagol goes, oh, yeah, she can do it. And then Gollum says, follow me, hobbits. This way. Then we pull back. We hear the tune.
We see Mordor off in the distance.
We had just been through a exhausting battle, a long movie, and there's still so much more to come. And that was the Two Towers. What do you guys think? You guys ready to rate this flick?
I'm ready to rate this flick. John, are you ready to rate this flick?
You must understand, young hobbit. It takes a long time for me to review a film, and I never review anything unless it's worth taking a long time to discuss. Okay, I take a long time discussing anything, really.
Hey, Professor, how do we do our ratings?
We do our ratings on a scale of 1 to 5 fucks. 5 fucks is a movie that we think is cinematic gold. A 1 fuck movie is where you get done watching it and you're thinking, I'm never watching that again.
And what's a 0?
A 0 fuck movie is where you get done watching it, you turn to your buddy, and you're like, oh, for shit's sake, what the hell? Why would you make me? I want 2 hours and 59 minutes of my life back.
Or in other words, we just don't give a fuck. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
All right, buddy.
The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers is my favorite of the three, I think. And it is a long movie, but it is an extremely satisfying watch. The emotional notes that we get throughout the movie are wonderful. The cinematography, the sweeping camera shots. I love the Battle of Helm's Deep. It is far and away a superior battle scene over few others that I can ever think of. It is so wonderfully done. The music is so wonderful in this movie as well. And I just can't say enough about how this is such a fantastic movie. So in short, it's a 5 fuck movie.
5 fucks from the Professor. You or me?
I'll go next.
Okay.
But before I do,
5.
Is that your final answer?
Yep.
Peter Jackson delivers yet another cinematic masterpiece with Two Towers, proving that the brilliance of Fellowship of the Rings was only the beginning. Every aspect of this sequel is crafted with the same level of passion and artistry, from the breathtaking landscapes of Middle-earth to the massive, meticulously executed battle scenes that redefine epic filmmaking. One of my favorite highlights is Andy Serkis's phenomenal performance as Gollum, easily one of the most captivating elements of the film. His portrayal, enhanced by groundbreaking motion capture technology, brings a tragic, unsettling depth to the character, making him one of the most unforgettable figures in fantasy cinema. The battles, particularly Helm's Deep, set a new standard for large-scale warfare on screen, balancing chaos and clarity in a way few films have matched. Howard Shore's score is just as powerful as it was in the first film, amplifying the emotion, tension, and grandeur of every scene. The Two Towers is fantasy filmmaking at its absolute finest, in my opinion. And so it's for those reasons I'm giving The Two Towers cinematic gold, 5 out of 5 fucks.
$5 from the comic book guy and $5 from the professor and $5 from me gives the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, an average of $5, which now ties it in the first spot with Back to the Future, and it is better than all of the rest. All right, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of Three Guys in a Flick. If you would like to know which movie we're going to be reviewing next, please check out the website. Speaking of which, hey, John, where can they find us?
You can find us at threeguysinaFlick.com, where we go ahead and post all of our podcasts, our show notes, anything else we can feel like. There's also a web form there that you can submit a movie you would like to go in the helmet for us to review next. You can also find us on all of social media, where I tend to go out and actually on, I believe around Tuesday, I advertise what movie we will be reviewing that week. You can also find us at any place that hosts podcasts. And while you're listening to us right now, be sure to give us a like, subscribe to our podcast, leave us a comment, and if you want to, in the comments, put a movie you would like us to review next.
All right. I just want to thank again Ezra and Matthew for throwing this into the Bronco helmet. We really enjoyed reviewing it. We hope you enjoyed listening to it, and we have one more to go. I also want to thank anyone who listens and who has suggested a movie. If you keep listening, we'll keep recording. For Three Guys in a Flick, I'm Don.
I'm John.
And I'm Ken. Thanks for listening.
Three guys with some mics, yeah, dive into the flicks. We're here for the real talk, no time for the tricks. Starting as the captain, steering us right. Kid drops, now is shedding light. John with the comics, bringing the hype. From the good, the bad, to the absurd, we break it down, make sure you heard. Passion for the screen, we ride or die about movies. You know, we always give a fuck, no lie.
And in the background, can we do Rudy, Rudy, Rudy?
What's taters, precious? What's taters?
Every time I hear that, I think of the Smashing Pumpkins. The world is a vampire.
Of Isengard and Mordor.
For the banner for this one.
I was doing the fucking quote.
Oh, were you actually? I didn't realize you. I thought you were.
Do you want to try it, Professor?
I'm not bowing to peer pressure.
Sean Bean. I did it again. All right, I need you to listen and pay attention.
That was not in the job description.
No, you have to ask him what time it is.
Oh,
Do you pay attention?
no.
This might be a better question. Do I make sense when I talk?
What?
Okay. Aragorn's group meets Éomer. Éomer. Fuck these names. Viggo Mortensen's group meets Carl Urban.
And she took one look at Viggo Mortensen.
Mortensen. All right, how many you got?
I got 3.
I got 2. Lord of the Cock Rings, the 2 titties.
I have Lord of the Cock Rings, the Goo Plowers.
The what?
The Goo Plowers.
Huh, interesting. What do you got?
The whore with the clit rings and her golden showers.
That's good. That's
pretty
good. The Lord of the Cock Rings, the 2 cocks.
I have the Lord of the Kinks, the Golden Showers.
How about the 2 golden showers?
The 2 Golden Showers, yeah.
What else?
I have Lord of the Anal Beads, the Poo Pushers.
Gross, bud. Gross. And then how about the Lord of the Cock Rings, the 2 plowers? Like that. Did you already say the 2 plowers? You said the goo
The
plowers.
Goo Plowers.
Yeah.
I also had just whatever Lord of the Cock Rings, the 2 Mounters.
The 2 mounters. All right. May all of your days and nights be filled with happiness. All right. Fuck up. Good night.
Catch the vibe as 3 guys in a fight, keep the passion alive. Fuck that.